I would like to hand over directly to our next speaker. And in the agenda, you may see that our next speaker is introduced as Professor Han Chung-Yang, and the smart guy who just shared his screen is apparently not Professor Han Chung-Yang. But Professor Han Chung-Yang would have loved to attend, but unfortunately for us, but fortunately for the Chinese government, he has currently to attend a very important governmental meeting, but therefore we are very happy to have nobody less than Dr. Xishan with us. And he knows as much as Professor Han Chung-Yang, as Dr. Xishan is head of the Shanghai Research and Development Team. And prior to his career in BI and his PhD, Dr. Xishan was a teacher and researcher at the Shanghai Veterinary Research Center. And he knows a lot about this disease, and due to his technical teaching background, he has the gift to really explain complex aspects that we have to deal with PRRS, and very practical, and break it down to field applicability. And within the next 20 minutes, Dr. Xishan will share with us a perfect vaccination program for PRRS and CSF. With that, I hand it over to you, Dr. Xishan.
Okay, good day. Hello from Shanghai. Thank you very much for your introduction, Maris. Well, yeah, I sub in for my friend Han Chung-Yang, and it's good. And I started the PRRS research in University of Minnesota with Dr. Mota in 1996, and then have been working on PRRS for the past 2 decades. For the last 10 years, and at the Shanghai R&D Center, and we finally got the product for CSF vaccine out. And then today, what I want to show is a couple of mouthful piece of literature review, and to delineate and what could be the relationship interference in between these 2 bugs. And then how we at BI, how do we manage with our range of different vaccine. I want to point your attention to the year of this publication. I guess this is even before the so-called Chinese highly pathogenic, and that's 2003. And in 2003, and Han Chung's lab already investigate if the infection of the PRRS virus could affect, moderate the CSF antibody response. And needless to say, China CSF is endemic, and also ASF now. And so mass vaccination with CSF has been a routine. And as you know, in China, PRRS virus came in 1995, and then more recently, and you would see in PRRS positive form, the CSF vaccination efficiency is going down. So the hypothesis is there might be some relationship with in between PRRS virus and CSF vaccination. And the design, and well, as I mentioned, this PRRS BJ4, and that's what Han Chung isolated in 1997, I believe. So that's a more what VR232-like. Virulence level-wise, that's a dramatic difference than what you read recently for the so-called HP PRRS. And C strain, that's the standard vaccine strain in China. And they have SPF peaks and both negative for CSF and PRRS. And the experimental design is for the combo infection vaccination, and they would infect PRRS 2 days earlier. Remember, 2 days earlier, and then followed up with vaccination. So the group, they have infection versus vaccination, and then vaccination only, infection only, and then the strict control group. So, and because the BJ4 strain, that's a relatively mild virulence of wild type strain, and they observed the clinical sign mainly for rectal temperature. And then the study design is mainly for serological evidence, and then also the leukocyte lymphocyte proliferation assay. Well, what was found is, as you can see, this is actually the IDEX PRRS tag, and this is the value for this PRRS antibody. And as you can see, PRRS vaccination, PRRS infection plus CSF vaccination compared with the PRRS infection only, you would get a similar kinetics of a PRRS antibody in between two groups. And that's at least in this study, CSF vaccine has no negative response to this PRRS antibody. So in addition, what they found is, well, the rectal temperature have a transient increase, but return to normal. There is no mortality whatsoever in the clinical induced by this PRRS. But on the other hand, when you evaluate the serological response against the CSF, this is a result of indirect ELISA and measure the CSF antibody. And what you show here is the normal CSF vaccination response. And if you put a virus infection 2 days earlier, you would get a dramatic decrease actually for the CSF response. As the cutoff value for this positive of CSF antibody response is 0.2. So that's stated, and the 2 day earlier prior infection of PRRS will significantly affect the humoral antibody response. So altogether, and Hantrin's lab earlier study and suggested, and actually PRRS have an immunosuppressive effect on the study setting for CSF vaccination. So, and the caveat for this is, as I mentioned, and we are seeing more both those so-called interference and from PRRS, but today, would that be too short? And what if you extend the interval time a little more? And then what would happen if you are using the highly pathogenic PRRS? And so in overall conclusion, and Hantrin confirmed the study, earlier study of Suredat and finding the right interference. And speaking with Dr. Suredat's paper, this is the second one. So what the further analyzed is this negative effect of PRRS infection and against CSF vaccination. So the viruses they used, and they did cellular immunity analysis, and then they have a local isolate as a CSF challenge strain, and the PRRS virus they used, I assume, is isolated 2001. So that should be a more classical low virulence PRRS. This group study, as you can see, roughly winning peaks at the day of 70-day age. And the study group, and this is essentially non-PRRS vaccination, non-vaccination, and with the CSF virus challenge. And this is a standard CSF vaccination group. And group C is, and you use the PRRS PRRS infection without vaccination. Group D is you infect the pigs with PRRS, you vaccinated with CSF, and then challenge with CSF. And by the way, the interval in between these studies 7 days. And you have a strict control group. And then what you can see here, this is the survival pigs. And if you look at the strict control, and at the end of the study, and no pigs left. And if you have a standard CSF vaccination, all 5 pigs survived. And then if you use no vaccine but virus infection, again, and all pigs are gone. Compare group B to D, and you have a prior infection before vaccination. And as what you can see, only 1 pig left. So that means this extra 1 week earlier infection before C strain vaccination, that's actually have a negative effect. And then the further analyzed the leukocyte counting, as you know, and the CSF challenge. And one of the hallmark is the leukocyte will have a decrease dramatically. And what you should see here, group B is a normal vaccination challenge, and you have a normal leukocyte level as so strict control. But if you throw in group C and D with a PRRS prior infection, and the leukocyte will be decreased dramatically. If you analyze the viremia for PRRS, and I want to point your attention to group D. If without a vaccination, and then if vaccination with a PRRS infection, the PRRS titer actually also prolonged than PRRS vaccination only. So if you check the CSF titer, and then group B is a standard vaccination, you don't see virus isolation. But if you add PRRS vaccination, what you see is basically the additional PRRS infection will drive the viremia, the CSF vaccination infection. So if you look at the virus distribution in those internal organs, and then here is a group B standard vaccination upon challenge, and with additional prior PRRS vaccination, you get a virus everywhere. And then if you look at the pathology, I don't go through all the detail, and this is a group B. Basically, you have nothing, and this is the hallmark of sterilizing immunity of a CSF C strain vaccine. And then if you have additional PRRS infection, and then you see all those lesions. Then if you measure the serum neutralization titer against the CSF, again, standard curve for vaccination upon challenge is there, but additional, if you have an additional PRRS infection, and the neutralization titer will drop down dramatically. And this is an IFN titer, and you don't see much difference over this. And here is the IL-10. And as you can see, actually, this PRRS added PRRS infection actually drove up this IL-10 expression level. So the overall conclusion of this paper is, so IL-10 could be the cytokine that's actually inhibit molecular response, stimulated by PRRS, and then drop down the vaccine efficiency of CSF. So we know from this two paper, and that's a definitive, there is an interference in between PRRS and CSF vaccination. As you know, and on the right panel, and we have Ojeski. We just finished the official launch of Ingovac CSF MLV. So we know PRV and CSF can be used in flex combo. So how do we have the optimal vaccination program along with this Ingovac PRRS? That's our study purpose for this one. So the design and is we want to ask if the PRRS vaccination can be placed 7 days or 2 weeks earlier. So what would be the PRRS vaccination 1 or 2 weeks earlier, and then along with CSF PRV flex combo, what would be the effect? So that's what's the study design. What you see here is a CSF antibody response. I think this is the standard IDEX blocking LASA. What you see here is the pigs we used is actually commercial pigs. Even before vaccination, this CSF maternal antibody level is pretty high. And then along with vaccination and our CSF and the PRV combo, and yes, you do see response lowered a little bit, but still above this 40% blocking rate, positive rate. So what you see here is yes, and this vaccination with 7 and 14 days of PRRS vaccination plus this CSF or PRV has no effect on the CSF serological response. Then if you look at the PRRS antibody response and the different pattern and between 7-day, 14-day earlier response, and this is actually the similar kinetics of what you can see with the Ingovac PRRS. More definitively, if you challenge the different group with the CSF virulent strain, the Shimon strain, and this Shimon strain, if you don't have a vaccination, and that will give you 100% mortality. And what you see here is a picture of the barn and with the flex combo between CSF and PRV, and you see all surviving pigs, and then 7 days, you actually essentially get 100%. Similarly, with 2 weeks earlier Ingovac PRRS vaccination. And the team also conducted a range of different pathological study. And here is a clinical scoring. And you see either 7-day or 14-day prior vaccination with Ingovac PRRS has no negative effect on the CSF upon CSF virulence challenge. So then you further look at those warts shedding, and yes, and in the 7-day prior Ingovac PRRS, there is 1 out of 10 pigs that's PCR positive, and but again, and for 14 days you get essentially with this negative control group. Also, that said is, well, yes, there are interference in between PRRS and the CSF, and then you can actually manage to avoid this interference in between different kind of vaccine. All studies showed, and you at least need to have the interval 1 week earlier, 2 weeks would be the best. So the overall conclusion is, yes, you need to control PRRS, and then you can maximize the CSF effect. So now at the Boehringer Ingelheim, we have both vaccine, and in China, we launched all 3 vaccine, and the team is trying to get the best formula. How do we prevent against both PRRS and CSF? That's all I have.